You wake up before the alarm rings? You always do. It is precisely 3:14 in the morning. The digital clock on the cheap, laminated nightstand glows with a harsh, unforgiving red light, casting long, distorted shadows across the unfamiliar, sterile bedroom. The air in this safe house, your fourth relocation in a grueling 8-month span, smells of stale bleach, old dust, and damp wood. It is the unmistakable scent of purgatory. You pull the scratchy military-grade woolen blanket up to your chin, holding your breath, just listening. You are not listening to the freezing wind howling against the frost-covered windows of this nameless, desolate Scandinavian town. You are listening for the other sounds, the rhythmic crunch of heavy tires on the gravel driveway, the subtle, muffled click of a suppressed weapon being chambered, the synchronized, heavy footsteps of men who do not officially exist on any government paper, moving with deadly purpose toward your front door. You are a ghost, a phantom forced to occupy a living, breathing body. 8 months ago, you had a real name. You had a thriving, highly respected career as a senior forensic accountant in Milan. You had an elegant apartment overlooking the Navigli, a sister who called you religiously every Sunday morning, and a life that made perfect mathematical sense. Now, you are nothing but a heavily redacted file sitting in a highly secure, air-gapped server. You are a logistical nightmare that the Italian state simply does not know how to solve, and you are currently the single most hunted woman on the European continent. You are the witness they could not kill. Not yet, anyway. You swing your legs over the edge of the narrow bed. The worn floorboards are freezing against your bare feet, sending a jolt of sharp reality up your spine. You do not turn on the bedside lamp. Light is a beacon. Light is a painted target on your back. You navigate the dark room by memory, keeping your body pressed firmly against the peeling floral wallpaper, and peek through a narrow, millimeter-wide slit in the heavy blackout curtains. The frozen street outside is entirely empty. A single failing street lamp flickers sporadically, casting a pale, jaundiced glow on the undisturbed fresh snow. But in your world, empty does not mean safe. Empty just means they are being methodical. It means they are being patient. They say that time heals all wounds, but time is exactly what is slowly, methodically driving you insane. The silence of the night allows your brain to rewind the tape, and you close your eyes as the memory floods back with a sickening, high-definition clarity. It was not a scene out of a stylized Hollywood Mafia movie. There was no dramatic operatic soundtrack, no slow-motion gunfight, no romanticized honor among thieves. It was a mundanely quiet Tuesday afternoon in a sunlit, glass-walled office in Naples. You were hired as an independent auditor to review the books of a seemingly legitimate, highly profitable maritime logistics and shipping company. You were just doing your job, tracing numbers on a complex spreadsheet, following a massive discrepancy hidden deep within a labyrinth of offshore shell companies based in Cyprus and the Cayman Islands. You were tracking millions of euros that appeared out of thin air, expertly washed through real estate portfolios and fake import invoices. You found the bleeding artery of their entire laundering operation, and then, driven by a foolish sense of professional diligence, you walked into the executive corner office at the worst possible moment. You saw the capo. You saw the nervous, sweating middleman. You saw the open briefcase overflowing with bearer bonds. And infinitely worse, you saw exactly what they did to that middleman when the ledger numbers didn't balance. You remember the wet, sickening thud of the heavy bronze statue connecting with his skull. You remember the casual, almost bored manner in which the capo wiped his blood-splattered hands with a monogrammed silk handkerchief. And then the room went dead silent as he slowly looked up and saw you standing frozen in the open doorway. You ran. You survived those first crucial 48 hours purely on raw adrenaline, animal instinct, and sheer blind luck. You managed to slip through the city, avoiding train stations and airports, until you reached the heavily fortified doors of the Anti-Mafia Directorate. You went to the highest authorities. You sat in windowless interrogation rooms and told them absolutely everything. You signed the endless stacks of legal papers. You provided the exact account numbers. You gave the damning testimonies. And you willingly entered the highest tier of the witness protection program. The men in sharp suits promised you total safety. They promised you a completely new life, a fresh start, a clean slate. They looked you in the eyes and lied. You move silently to the tiny, sterile kitchen and turn on the tap, letting the icy water run over your trembling hands, trying to shock your nervous system into focus. You need to constantly remind yourself of the massive, relentless machinery of the beast that is hunting you, just to understand why you will never be truly safe again. The organization you crossed, the syndicate, the family, the network, whatever sanitized name the international media calls them today, is not a ragtag group of street-level thugs shaking down local businesses. They do not rely on sheer brute force or petty intimidation alone. They are a highly sophisticated, multinational corporate entity. They operate a shadow government with an untaxed economic output significantly larger than the GDP of several sovereign European nations combined. When you sat in that interrogation room and testified, so you did not just point a finger at a single murderer. You launched a nuclear strike against their entire financial ecosystem. You threatened the vital shipping logistics routes, the carefully constructed shell companies, the billion-dollar commercial real estate investments in London, the secret numbered bank accounts in Geneva. You threatened the very lifeblood of their global empire. And an empire of that magnitude does not simply forgive a threat. It methodically eradicates it. Their hunting mechanism is a flawless, terrifying masterpiece of modern psychological warfare and systemic, deeply rooted corruption. They do not just put a crude bounty on your head and wait for a hitman to get lucky. They systematically dismantle your entire existence, piece by piece. You learned this devastating reality the hard way during your second month in hiding. Your government handlers strictly ordered you not to contact your family under any circumstances. They said it was for their absolute safety. But the syndicate does not play by the established rules of human decency or international law. They know you are out there listening. They know you are watching from the dark shadows of your isolation. So they begin the subtle, agonizing squeeze. They orchestrate a sudden, aggressive, and inexplicable tax audit on your sister's small, struggling bakery in Milan, freezing her assets. They make sure your elderly father's vital medical pension payments are mysteriously delayed, tangled in endless, impenetrable bureaucratic nightmares. They send terrifyingly quiet men in expensive, tailored suits to sit at the outdoor cafe directly across from your mother's house. These men do absolutely nothing but drink espresso, smoke cigarettes, and stare unblinkingly at her front door for hours on end. They never touch your family. They never speak a word to them. They just let you know, through the silent, suffocating grapevine of terror, that they can reach out and crush the people you love at any given second. They want you to feel the crushing, unbearable guilt. They want the psychological isolation to become so incredibly heavy, the weight of your family's unmerited suffering so painful that you eventually break. They want you to put a bullet in your own head to save them. Or better yet, they want you to willingly walk out into the open, surrender, and accept your execution. You grip the edge of the cheap aluminum sink, your knuckles turning completely white from the pressure. The psychological toll of this existence is a slow-acting, highly corrosive poison. You obsessively scrutinize every single minute detail of this new, fabricated life they have given you. Your heavily backstopped new name feels like a thick, suffocating winter coat that simply does not fit your body. You work a mindless, menial data entry job from the confines of this safe house, using a heavily encrypted government laptop with a secure VPN that bounces your digital footprint through 5 different proxy servers across the globe before connecting to the internet. Every Tuesday morning, precisely at 9, you walk 3 blocks to the local independent grocery store. It is your only physical excursion into the outside world. But the paranoia is a heavy, Tajai, physical weight sitting squarely on your chest, restricting your breathing. When you walk down the brightly lit canned goods aisle, you are not looking at the prices of soup. You are looking intensely at the distorted reflections in the polished metal framing of the dairy section. Is that tall man in the heavy gray winter coat lingering just a few seconds too long near the dried pasta? Did the young cashier at the register look at your forged identification card a fraction of a second longer than absolutely necessary? When a random car drives past you on the quiet residential street and slightly slows down to navigate a speed bump, your heart completely stops beating. Your right hand instinctively, desperately reaches into the deep pocket of your oversized coat, wrapping your freezing fingers around the cold, heavy, unforgiving steel of the compact, untraceable pistol you bought off the grid from a paranoid local smuggler. It is a weapon you barely know how to properly shoot, but one you are absolutely certain you will blindly empty into the chest of the very first person who dares to call you by your real given name. The isolation is total and absolute. You cannot make casual friends. You cannot have a lover. Human intimacy requires a foundation of truth, and your truth is a guaranteed death sentence for anyone who hears it. If you get a simple toothache, you agonize for agonizingly long days over whether visiting a local dentist's office is an acceptable risk. What if they require an emergency X-ray? What if your specific dental records somehow ping an automated facial recognition database secretly accessible by a highly paid, you're a corrupt official on the syndicate's massive payroll? You end up pulling the infected tooth yourself in front of the bathroom mirror, using a pair of sterilized hardware store pliers, half a bottle of cheap burning vodka, and a rolled-up towel to bite down on to muffle your own screams. The blinding physical pain of the extraction is a strangely welcome distraction from the deafening, agonizing silence of your own mind. Then comes the horrifying turning point. The exact moment the fragile, carefully constructed illusion of the safe house violently shatters into a million pieces. It happens on a Thursday evening, exactly 3 days ago. It is a detail so infinitesimally small, so seemingly insignificant that anyone else in the world would have brushed it off as a trick of the light or simple forgetfulness. But you are no longer anyone else. You are a hunted, desperate animal, and your heightened senses are permanently tuned to the specific frequency of mortal danger. You had intentionally left a single, long strand of blonde hair, your natural hair color, before you chemically burned it into this harsh, unrecognizable, dead black, draped delicately and precisely over the metallic handle of your bedroom door before you left for your weekly grocery run. It was a paranoid habit, a secret security ritual you performed obsessively every single time you stepped out of the house. When you returned an hour later, cheap groceries in hand, you immediately checked the door handle. The hair was gone. Your stomach violently dropped into a bottomless, freezing abyss. You did not scream. You did not panic. Panic gets you killed in this world. You calmly, mechanically walked into the kitchen, set the plastic grocery bags down on the counter, and analytically scanned the environment. Nothing was missing. Nothing was visibly moved or disturbed. The secure government laptop was sitting exactly where you left it on the small dining table. The thin layer of dust on the living room windowsill was completely undisturbed, but the static air in the room felt entirely different. It felt heavy. It felt occupied. You methodically checked the perimeter of the house. The deadbolt locks were perfectly intact. There were absolutely no visible signs of forced entry. That meant only one terrifying thing. They were highly trained professionals, top-tier ghost operatives. They came in silently. They expertly bypassed the complex, redundant alarm system you had painstakingly installed yourself. They systematically searched the entire premises, and they left without leaving a physical trace. They know exactly where you are. Why didn't they just put a bullet in the back of your head right then and there? The horrific realization hits you with the devastating force of a physical blow to the chest. They are not just here to silently eliminate you. They want to make a highly visible, gruesome example out of you. They want to physically extract every last drop of information. They want to know exactly what else you told the anti-Mafia authorities, where the encrypted backup files are hidden, and who else you might have spoken to. They are meticulously preparing the stage for an interrogation that will end in your slow, agonizing death. The trap has been perfectly sprung, and you are sitting right in the middle of it, waiting for the jaws to snap shut. You realize with a crushing wave of despair the terrifying, foundational truth about the Witness Protection Program. It is, at its core, just a government bureaucracy. And all bureaucracies are entirely made up of flawed, vulnerable human beings, people with crushing gambling debts, people with hidden drug addictions, people with innocent families of their own, who can easily be threatened and leveraged. It only takes one deeply compromised, underpaid data clerk in a windowless sub-basement office in Rome. One heavily encrypted digital message sold on the dark web to the absolute highest bidder, and your secret coordinates are permanently burned. The state cannot possibly protect you. They are hopelessly outmatched, vastly outspent, and entirely outmaneuvered by the Shadow Empire. You have not slept a single second since that terrifying Thursday evening. You have already packed your emergency go bag, stuffed with vacuum-sealed stacks of untraceable cash, 3 high-quality fake passports, a burned satellite phone, and the heavy pistol. You are currently sitting in the freezing dark of the kitchen, gripping the handle of your bag, just waiting for the inevitable breach. Every passing shadow cast by the dying street lamp outside the window looks exactly like a trained sniper settling into position. Every sudden gust of freezing wind rattling the window panes sounds exactly like a tactical breaching charge being planted on the front door. The suffocating paranoia has finally completely consumed your entire reality. You realize with cold mathematical certainty that even if you somehow manage to run again tonight, even if you miraculously make it to a remote village in South America or disappear into the dense crowds of Southeast Asia, the massive machinery will simply keep turning. They have practically infinite financial resources and unlimited time. You have a rapidly dwindling stack of mixed currency and a completely frayed, exhausted nervous system that is on the verge of total collapse. You look deeply at your own reflection in the dark, reflective glass of the window pane. The hollow, desperate woman staring back at you is a complete stranger. Her dark eyes are sunken and empty. Her skin is a sickly pale. Her posture is rigid with perpetual, exhausting fear. They didn't actually put a physical bullet in your brain that Tuesday afternoon in Naples, but they successfully killed you nonetheless. They brutally murdered your identity, your peace of mind, your entire future. They forcefully turned you into a feral creature of pure, instinctual survival, systematically stripped of all human joy and connection. This is your reality now. A permanent, unending state of running, hiding, and agonizingly waiting for the silent executioner to finally arrive. You will never again feel the warm comfort of the sun on your face without anxiously checking your surroundings. You will never answer a ringing phone without a spike of pure dread. You will never, ever be completely free. You are the sole surviving witness they couldn't kill, but in the bitter, cynical end, it really doesn't matter at all, because the solitary, terrifying life you are currently living is entirely indistinguishable from being dead. You slowly pick up the heavy canvas bag, pull back the slide of your pistol to check the chamber one last time, and walk silently out the back door into the freezing, unforgiving night, disappearing once again into the deep, endless shadows of the underworld. That is all for today. The story you just heard is fiction, but the reality of civilian witnesses hunted by international crime syndicates happens every day. If this story made you think, leave a comment telling us your biggest takeaway. Subscribe so you don't miss the next stories from the underworld. Until next time,